Hi, this is Bob Coppedge, CEO, Grand Poobah of Simplex-IT, and I'm actually joined. This is kind of fun for us. We're going to have a series of about 4 or so quick little webinar videos, whatever, about cybersecurity. And I'm joined by Michael DePalma, who, as you can see, is the Channel Development Manager at Datto, and much smarter than I am. Michael, how you doing?
How you doing, Bob? Looking forward to it.
Cool.
All right, so I'll jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so just to kind of set the stage here, when we look at just the history of the world and different ages that we've been in, right? We've got the Bronze Age, we've got the Trojan War, right? You date everything back. Well, we are living in a time right now, right? We went from the Industrial Revolution to now the data revolution, where businesses, individuals, everybody is tied to their data. And it's great. We live in a society now. We have access to so much information. We've got so many new technologies. The problem is the criminals love this. And this is what crime has shifted to. It's no longer the guys breaking into the banks with guns. It's folks hacking into systems and getting the data. And so there's a lot of scary stuff out there. And the one that really applies to small businesses the most right now is ransomware. I've been doing ransomware specific presentations for 4 or 5 years now. 5 years ago, I'd get a couple head nods, but most people are looking down at their phones. As the years have gone on, we've seen a lot more head nods. We've seen a lot more people either that have been infected personally, or maybe a client or a vendor's been impacted, or they've just seen stories in the news, and now it's on the top of everybody's minds. And really what drove the attention was about 2 years ago, the WannaCry attack, which actually at the time was the largest single-day, single-virus attack that the world's ever seen. 220,000 networks worldwide impacted by a single virus in a single day. And what was pretty unique about it was normally these criminals, they want to gather some information about you so that when they go out and they ask for that ransom payment, they know whether they're talking to a Fortune 500 company that they might be able to get 7 figures out of, or a one-man nonprofit that they might be only able to squeeze maybe $500-600 out of. This particular variant only asks for $300 across the board. They could impact a municipality, a bank, a hospital, and they were only going to ask for $300. So in the IT world, and Bob, you might be able to confirm this, we kind of thought this was phase 1 of a 2-phase attack, that the next phase was going to be, all right, now we're going to figure out how to monetize this. And that's really what we were all kind of thinking. Now, about 2 weeks after this attack, I was doing a presentation out in Pennsylvania alongside a gentleman from the FBI, who's actually the head of cybersecurity for the Philadelphia office. I do my presentation and, it's kind of scare people about this ransomware stuff. And then the FBI agent gets up and he talks, and he's talking about some really scary stuff. He's talking about cyber warfare and hacktivism, but he finishes with ransomware because it's a hot button topic of the day. And he says, we actually have 2 theories. One is exactly what Michael just said. We're preparing for this second phase. That's why we're trying to figure out what the vulnerabilities were that were exploited. We're trying to figure out how we can educate the small businesses. But we have a second theory. And at the time, back in May 2017, it seemed a little far-fetched. But as the months went on, I think there was a lot of validity to it. And they said that there was a possibility that the entire attack, the goal behind it was just to make the worldwide news, that it did. They wanted to be the front page of every newspaper, lead story on every website. And the reason being, they wanted to scare the business community doing one thing, and that was increase the cost of Bitcoin. They wanted to go out and say, you need to be prepared. And so, when you think about it, these criminals have been really perpetrating these ransomware attacks for the last 6-7 years now, and they always ask for the money in Bitcoin because it can't be tracked back to them. They're not asking for a credit card for the most part. They're not asking for an ACH payment. They're going to ask for this anonymous cryptocurrency that they know they can obtain and not get caught. So they were accumulating millions and millions of Bitcoin when a Bitcoin was worth $50, $100. And you could see on the screen, it was pretty stagnant for years. Opened up 2016, just over $440. 2017, it was just under $1,000. And then you see that first spike. When was that? That was May and June of 2017, because what was happening was the business community was listening to us, the IT professionals that were saying, you better be prepared for this second phase. And they were installing all these great technologies to prevent these guys from getting in, but they knew their last line of defense was, hey, I better have this Bitcoin on hand. Because you can't walk into a Wells Fargo and say, hey, I need to fund $250,000 into a Bitcoin account. You've got to go set up an account, got to find an exchange, you've got to fund it. So the business community was just funneling money into this, preparing for that, and then like anything else, the markets followed. And we saw this crazy Q4 bonanza that actually peaked Bitcoin at about $20,000. And then it opened up last year at about 15 grand. And so you saw the stories about the entrepreneur who made millions of dollars, or the 20-year-old kid who bought some Bitcoin. And those are great feel-good stories. The bottom line was it was the criminals that were making money by the hundreds of millions of dollars a day when that crazy spike was occurring. So whether the FBI was right or wrong, the fact remains. Those are the guys that made all that money. And I don't know, Bob, if you had heard that theory, but it was pretty interesting when I heard it.
Well, I think I've heard some of that, but the thing to me that is telling, and it piggybacks on your story right there, is the bad guys are entrepreneurs. You know, it's kind of like what you said. Back in the day, we had to have a gun, we had to go to a bank. It was really tiring to be a criminal and to steal money. But it's automated, and it's just like any other attribute of IT, where you make it so much easier to contact customers, to distribute your goods and services and all that kind of thing. Well, unfortunately, it's that easier for the bad guys to do the same thing. And whether you look at it from the standpoint of the WannaCry was distributed, a highly well-distributed product that still made money by people paying the $300, or you look at it at a very high-level marketing technique to actually push a separate product. Either way, you've got these ingenious people who are basically looking at this technology and saying, it is so easy to connect with people. It is so easy to talk people into doing actions or activities, and we can monetize this. And that's why the ransomware side, it is a billion-dollar business, and I don't mean in the damages, I mean in the revenue that the bad guys are getting. And that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you the sophistication. It's not the guy in his basement anymore. This is a corporate structure, like you said. I mean, this is what organized crime has shifted to all over the world. And you mentioned the billion-dollar number. That was the hard number that was actually paid. $1 billion changed hands.
Right.
The FBI, though, put out a stat that said the actual cost closer to $75 billion, because this number includes the cost of data loss and, more importantly, the cost of downtime. You could look after study after study. PricewaterhouseCoopers put out a study last year that said 71% of businesses that were down for a week or more closed their doors within 12 months. And so the reason why these folks are paying is because they can't, they're backing up their data. I don't talk to very many people who aren't backing up their data. The question is, how long is it going to take me to get that data back and get up to a production environment? And most people can't answer that question. They know that they can prevent losing data to some extent, but how long are they going to be down, and what's the cost of that? Those are the questions that businesses really need to ask themselves.
But one of the things I'm going to challenge you on this a little bit is when you say that people are backing up their data, we have found when we're working with companies, especially when we first start talking to a potential client or customer, they think they're backing up all their data, but they're not actually. And this happens on one of two layers. One is there's a disconnect between their current IT provider, whether it's internal or a third party, and them, that it's not as healthy as they would hope it is. And then the second is that, oh, I've got my stuff in the cloud, that's okay, the vendor is backing that up, whether it be the Office 365, your Google Docs, Salesforce, any of that kind of stuff, which those vendors really aren't doing a backup the way we think of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's not their overall goal. I mean, that's not what they're in business to do, is back up data. And beyond that, if you're using the cloud data to back up your servers, go ahead and try to pull down several terabytes of data from the cloud and call me when that's ready. You know what I mean? It's not something that you snap your fingers, right? I mean, I'm sure you've run into that. So that's kind of the lay of the land of what we're seeing out there in terms of ransomware, in terms of some of these cyber threats. I am happy to see that a lot more head nods are occurring when I'm out doing live presentations, and hopefully they continue to really bubble up to realize, this is something I need to be diligent about. I need to at least let somebody come in and do a network assessment, because like you said, there could be gaps with your current backup right now. I highly encourage everybody who was able to watch this, reach out to Bob and his team. At a minimum, let them come in and take a look at what's going on with your system.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Yay.